What is good? Osiris here, stuck in the middle. Thanks for joining. Football Sundays always seem crazy, don't they? Good stuff going on. I watch Red Zone, so I don't really see what's going on with the development of the games, but I see the big plays. Hopefully, everybody's having a good Sunday or whenever you watch this video. I'm replying to Ethel Wolf. Ethel Wolf made a comment on one of my videos. Ethel says, "Who gives a about Constitution? This is about what is right and wrong. It's a moral matter beyond legal speak." Appreciate the comment. This is in regards to the video that I did on the update on Joe Biden's mandate. And I think it is no brainer that his mandate is unconstitutional. So Ethel says to me, who cares about Constitution? I keep harping on in many videos, I harp on the Constitution. And I need to explain why. Ethel, we're on the same page. We're speaking the same language. What I respectfully think you're missing, the point that you're missing is the Constitution is the document that defines our morals of our country. I did a video just recently on Marjorie Taylor Greene and how she went to visit people from, defendants from J6. What they did was stupid, but I titled it, "Stupid Games Must Still Be Constitutional." And maybe, actually, it could have been from that video. It could be for any video. I talk about the Constitution a lot. So I have a constitutional right. This may sound weird, but I have a constitutional right to share a society with somebody who did a stupid act of noncompliance, and they're still treated with a fair and speedy trial. I talked about it with the George Floyd trial. There was a juror on that trial that, in my opinion, was clearly compromised, that violates the constitutional right that I have, and more importantly, Chauvin, as stupid as Derek Chauvin was, he has a right to a fair trial. What they do to somebody else can come back to you. I refrain from talking about morals, Ethel, and anyone else listening here, in general, because we all don't have the same morals. You don't want to talk with these leftists about morals. They think the theft that's happening in San Francisco due to these wacky, misguided progressive laws is moral. They think everything they do is moral, whether you agree with it or not. I think we got to get back to civics, just a tad, just a little drop here, not deep. But civics is the study of the rights and duties of citizenship. And then I think it's even more than that. It's you have to understand the context behind these rights. And that's what the Constitution is. I'm going to raise my kids. You got to know what is in this document. And if the country doesn't hold up to this document, then we've got problems. The context, Ethel, here that I think will help you connect the Constitution to morals is that our society from the founding fathers was built on Judeo-Christian values. It doesn't matter, anyone who has been raised in the United States, and that's where I'm an expert. I'm not as knowledgeable in other countries. I'm just learning about Australia and how it basically started as a jail. My wife was like, "You didn't know that?" I didn't know that. So it explains a lot where they are now. But our country, what doesn't matter what you believe, if you are Christian or not Christian or atheist, whatever you are, you believe in the religion of critical race theory, it doesn't matter. You are in a society that is founded on Judeo-Christian values through the Constitution. On our currency, it still says, "In God we trust." At least now, before it goes digital. That's an interesting thought, that when we go digital, I don't think our currency will have that anymore. And that's a very, very interesting thought. We still have people swear on the Bible. The Bill of Rights was ratified December 15th, 1791. And what is it? It's just the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, and that mimics the 10 commandments of the Bible. I can go into more detail maybe one day in a deep dive video on that. There's way more connections, but that's the gist of it. So you've got it. Ethel, we're talking the same language. When I say Constitution, I really mean the objective moral values of our country. When you say morals, that's subjective. That's the difference. But what we're seeing right now is the Constitution is, let's just say I wouldn't wipe Brandon's ass with it because there's holes all over it that are popping up. Let me give you an example. I have the moral right, even if I homeschool my children, to share a society, the moral right through the Constitution. Don't let me get twisted off that now. I have the moral right defined by the Constitution to share a society with someone who has not been indoctrinated with a state-sponsored religion, which is critical race theory. I have that right. Even if I homeschool my children, even if you homeschool your children, you still have a constitutional right to share a society with someone who's not indoctrinated through the state. If they want to homeschool their children and teach them critical race theory, they absolutely can. Now, understand that means you can homeschool your children and teach them the opposite of it too. So it goes both ways. This is also what happened with slavery. Frederick Douglass said the Constitution, I'm paraphrasing him, but he thought the Constitution was a great moral document. So his point was, how does slavery fit your morals of this document? He said, paraphrasing, that slavery discredits your hard work, your genius work, your brilliant work of the founding fathers, and it discredits the Constitution. If the Constitution means something, slavery should be unconstitutional. He was able to compel the Republicans in the North, he was able to compel them to say, you've got a point. Now, they didn't rely on slavery for their particular economics in the North, so it was easier for them to say that. But the rich Democrat farmers in the South who had slaves, now remember, it was the rich slaves, the rich farmers that have slaves, not your common farmer didn't have slaves. They were expensive. But the rich Democrat farmers in the South, they controlled the Democrat Party. They were the finance. They had all the money. They had financial interest in keeping free labor. I don't know if it was even, they would probably agree it was unconstitutional, in my opinion. I think a lot of them did because Frederick Douglass actually worked with some of them, the slave owners. They knew it was unconstitutional, but they're like, this is how we make our money. So it's kind of scary when you take your money away. I'm not going to be a rich farm landowner anymore. That was a big deal that was everything back then. So when there's that disagreement over fundamental moral of the document, it had to be resolved. And you know what happened. The same thing could have happened with Jim Crow. Jim Crow came out of the South again Southern Democrats. And this time I would use Martin Luther King Jr. as one of the big figures who made the case of, if basically the same case, Martin Luther King Jr. was a patriot, there aren't many leftists or establishment figures that would say, I'm a patriot. That triggers them. I'm going to do a different video, hopefully, that I touch on that. But Martin Luther King Jr. said, well, this Jim Crow doesn't line up with your Constitution either. And we had to resolve that. That one, so it had to be resolved through the Constitution, or it would have been the same thing as the Civil War before then. That's what happened. We're in that part now. I think there isn't much, when you talk about how far we are apart, I'm not going to compare the acts of slavery to the theories that are going on now, but slavery could not coexist with the Constitution. We either had to divorce or amend the Constitution. Jim Crow could not exist with the Constitution. We either were going to have to divorce or amend the Constitution. We got the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment as civil rights after the Civil Rights era. We have that much of a fundamental difference. I'm going to end with this. We have that much of a fundamental difference now. Same thing. The pedagogy right now of critical theory, the critical theory applies to anything. Most commonly, we talk about critical race theory, but it's lumped in with critical gender theory. It's any critical theory pedagogy that cannot coexist with the Constitution. That is a fact. The revenge that they talk about, the justice that they talk about, the equity they talk about cannot coexist with the Constitution. No different than slavery couldn't coexist, no different than Jim Crow couldn't exist. This is a story I'm going to do probably my next video on. Seattle Parks, I quote, Explore Discovery Park through an interactive beach walk. Appreciate nature in a way that is culturally responsive to your experience as Black, Indigenous, or people of color. Open to anyone who identifies as BIPOC. That's literally Jim Crow. It's wrapped up in a nice package. Sounds so much better than saying no whites allowed, but that's what it is. That is unconstitutional. And we are in potentially a worse state because we're dealing with multiple things that are unconstitutional. We can't, back in the Civil War, back in Jim Crow, we weren't arguing over what gender is. I'm not taking a side here. I'm just, as an observer in my own country, saying we don't even agree on gender. When that happens, there's nothing, we don't even need to talk about the Constitution. You can't even say we started America all over fresh. We couldn't even make a Constitution right now. Because if you don't agree on gender, how can you even, what are the values that your defining document, your moral document would be built on? We're in serious times right now. Let me know what you think. Take care.